Cool. Launching up to YouTube. And yeah, I got a question. Prevent, right? Like, you do the fractional CTO thing, right? How do you verify that your like public APIs are actually accurate? Is it just like, do you just raw dog integration tests, or do you use some like automated tool that verifies that your open API doc is actually accurate? Like Dread.js. Right? But are you doing that based off of your open API YAML file? Because there's still a chance for like your integration tests to become out of sync with your open API YAML. So I'm curious about how you make sure that drift doesn't happen. All right, so you don't do anything to prevent that drift. Got it. That makes sense. Use Go so you verify against the struts. Yeah. No, I get it. Like that's how most people do it. I use Dread.js, but it is deprecated. The fact that it's deprecated doesn't prevent it from actually working, though. So yeah, that's like literally what I'm doing right now. So I'm crawling my OpenAPI YAML file and validating that against the actual API endpoint. So there's something similar for .NET. So technically, Dread.js is agnostic, right? Because your API for .NET can be written in .NET, right? Dread is just doing an HTTP request to your server. So yeah, Dread doesn't care what your API is written in. All it's doing is validating request response cycles. So you could use Dread.js with a .NET API just fine. The thing that I'm doing with hooks is something that you can do as well. So like, you do still have to write a little bit of what amounts to integration testing. So for this 409, that's a conflict response. What it means is I need to create an account with an ID ahead of time in this like before hook, and then the hook or the request itself tries to create basically the same thing with the same ID. And that should create a failure of a 409 because, hey, we got a conflict. You can only have one thing with that ID, right? So this part is just setting up the request that's being automatically made. This is me making a request to like establish the precondition of this thing failing. So you'll have to do that for a lot of endpoints, but it's actually using my OpenAPI spec to test against the API. And it doesn't matter what the API is written in. Now, these hooks you can write in a bunch of different languages. Do they have a list? Yeah, so right now there's JavaScript, Go, Perl, PHP, Python, Ruby, and Rust. And theoretically, someone could create one for .NET or whatever. Yeah, exactly, Moshiko. Yep. Because all that you're doing for here, like this can live in a total separate repo, or it could just live in like a subfolder of your .NET project, whatever. All you need for Dread to work is this Dread hooks file, which is going to be the, setting up the preconditions for all your requests. You're going to have a Dread YAML file, which is your configuration for it. So, you're pointing it to where your hook files are. You're saying where the server is going to be, where your OpenAPI YAML file lives. So you can have multiple scripts. It's pretty cool. You can even set it to like start your server for you. I didn't want it to do that because I have the server running separately anyway. But yeah, I I don't know why it's deprecated. I think people just ran out of time, but it does currently just work, which is kind of cool. Now, what you'll see here is I'm doing sorted false. If you wanted to do it like lazy, you could get these things sorted and then set it up in a way where like you know the order that these things always fire in, which means you can reuse maybe let me show an example. I've got this post endpoint in which we're trying to create an account. I could then theoretically reuse the ID from this post in this 409 and not have to do that extra request that you saw, right? Like in here, this wouldn't be necessary. I could just use something from the stash. But that does make a more brittle test. So instead, if you can make your test idempotent and it doesn't matter what order it runs in, and idempotent is probably the wrong word, but stable, right? Like it sets up all the state that it needs to a degree, right? Like business ID, you don't need to set that up for every single, like a new business ID. You don't need to do that. But yeah, for like this 409, the right way to do it is to create the thing that I'm going to conflict with in the before hook for the thing that I'm doing. The hackier way is just to reuse data that's been created by some other part of the testing. But again, that ends up introducing like side effects, and those kind of side effects are really gross to program around. Like, especially once they break. Like, oh no, something happened and it got sorted differently or whatever. And yeah, now that thing that was there isn't there anymore. You'll run into that when you start dealing with like delete requests. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic tool. Keep in mind it's deprecated. But deprecated doesn't mean broken. There's a little bit of work to do, and there's like some things to ignore about it. But yeah, I really like it for anything where you're going to have a public-facing API. Even for an internal API, I think it's worth it, because how many times have you been working on a project and either you or someone else pushes up a change to the API but forgets to update the OpenAPI spec, which then means maybe another person or you as the front ender goes to consume it, and why isn't this working? I'm getting a 400, but I'm reading the spec. It doesn't say anything, and for some reason you're not getting a good error from the 400, which I think we've all worked on projects where you're not getting a good like Zod validation error. It just says, bad request. Ugh, gross. And then bam, you like message the person that made the change to the API and they're like, oh yeah, I just forgot to update the OpenAPI YAML. Right? Now, should you be catching that in code review? Absolutely. But I've found in very many cases, if the back-end team is the back-end team and the front-end team is the front-end team, you're typically not reviewing the back-end team's code. So you're leaving it up to the back-end devs to catch something that doesn't affect them because they're not consuming the API. So that's why I really do think like full stack and cross-functional teams are really important. And you need someone who cares about that aspect. We've talked about it here on stream. Like there's the idea of like hats that you wear. Someone else was talking about like the hats you wear when you do certain types of coding. I think there's also the hats you wear when you do code review. And typically someone wears the same hat all the time and no one can wear all the same hats or all of the hats, which means you're going to have one person who cares a lot about making sure there's no important in the CSS, making sure there's good variable naming, right? There's all sorts of hats that we wear as code reviewers, and you can't possibly catch everything. So instead, if you focus on the things that you care the most about and make sure other people focus on the things that they care the most about, then you're good. So one person looking at the response can then say, well, hey, this response changed, but you didn't update the OpenAPI YAML. Now, are there ways that we can catch some of that? Absolutely. And there's even a way we could maybe do that with an automation, like with Get Kraken automations. So yeah, I might want to pursue that at some point. But it's tricky. Important is really bad. The only thing worse is inline styling, because important introduces specificity problems. So I don't know if you've ever been working on a project where you're just like, I don't know why this change isn't taking effect. The CSS value should be overriding that one. CSS specificity and the order in which those things got included is your problem. Is there a calculator? Yes. This is one of the best ones, yeah. All right, so at the bare minimum, we can just look and say that we've got a .foo .bar, right? And then we've got .foo, etc., right? When you look at these values, this too is always going to be more specific. So the value inside of this nested or like combined class is always going to be taking effect over whatever you define here, regardless of the order that they're defined in the CSS file. So that means if I'm trying to set margin auto on this, but I've got margin 2 pixels on this, right? Like this combined selector, then I'll never be able to override it here without important. And important can be useful in certain cases, but it should definitely be a code smell. There are times where it's not worth fixing the specificity, but it should be extremely rare. And I think what you'll find is oftentimes people will throw an important in there and then make a bunch of other changes. And by the time they've like actually made the PR, that important might not even be necessary anymore. Like they could try removing it and, oh, it's fine actually. But in the process of fiddling with CSS, people will sneak an important in that maybe isn't necessary. When instead, maybe it was necessary to get the change they needed, but the important could actually just be a more specific selector, right? You're targeting .foo when instead you could just target .foo.bar in whatever other CSS place you want. Yes. So Tailwind is not about not having to deal with CSS. You still need to understand CSS with Tailwind. The thing Tailwind prevents is the specificity issue, because the specificity issue is basically like everything in Tailwind is just a class, which means they all have a specificity of 0, 1, 0. So yeah, Tailwind helps make some of that easier because you're no longer dealing with like the nesting and like the combinatorial logic. Well, like Musino, that's why you would probably like Tailwind, because when you say adding stuff on top of it, it's just on that element, or it's just on that shared value. Like, yeah, atomic styling fixes the specificity issue at the cost of some other things. But that's also why there's a compiler that can actually create ad hoc classes for you by combining selectors, right? So yeah, the Tailwind compiler is actually pretty like interesting and smart as well. One more thing before we move on from the CSS stuff is you may be inclined to think about this as like a number, but it's not an actual number. It's more like semver. So if you were to do, right, like if you start breaking this down and think about it as 0.2.0, and 0.1.0, then you'll be able to really recognize due to semver that 0.2.0 will always be greater than, oh, and I'm typing it wrong, hold on, 0.2.0 is always greater than 0.0.100, right? Right, so just remember, specificity is not a decimal number. It is a semver group of decimal numbers. And based upon pretty much the same rules as semver, specificity works that way as well. So one ID will always outweigh 100 classes. And that's why important's a problem, because, yeah, you got one, like, for an ID, important is maybe like another, right, on top of it. And then inline is a value on top of that. So technically it ends up being more like 0.0.2.0. Hold on, I'm missing one. Yeah. So that first one for foo.bar is actually closer to 0.0.0.2.0. Because inline styles always take precedence over important styles that are in a CSS file, and then important always takes precedent over an ID, and so on and so forth. This is the number one thing that gets people when they're dealing with CSS. When they're learning it for the first time, or they don't use it often enough. Okay, so I think we should be better off here. Let me do an Apple K. All right, we got that post. The get fails, but our 409 succeeds. Oh, yeah. All right, so yeah, we just keep going through this process and adding more hooks to solve things. Some of them will stay unsolved for a bit because I want to debug and get them working in the app. Because this is not a great debugging process. Like, it's good for, like, small things, like, oh, this get, well, yeah, we're doing something wrong with that get. We'll figure that out. But yeah, like this patch, that patch is probably really easy. Like, really easy. We just need to do another hook. We don't need to, like, fully debug it. We just need to see and verify that our assumption of what's going wrong is going wrong. And yeah, what's up, Nas? All right, so that one we expect to fail. That 500, yep, we'll fix that elsewhere. So this one is actually kind of simple. We're not getting account detail on these, which is interesting. Oh, you know what? Yeah, so that's actually a flaw in the data that we scaffolded. So that's in our fixture data. And we're not going to end up fixing that. Like, we'll fix the endpoint, like the fixture data generation. But it's not going to fix our failing test until we do, like, a flush of the database. Even though technically it should be an optional field, that might be a bug with how Dread is interpreting that schema. Because it should allow for optional fields. Let's look at our OpenAPI YAML real quick. So it's going to be down in our schemas in these responses. So yeah, components, schemas, it's going to be one of these kind of like request objects. Yep. So there it is. When realistically, that should be nullable true. Let's go look at the library we're using. So TypeScript JSON schema. And yeah, how you doing there, Deucey? Let's go look at the repo. Yes, we're on version 53, and they're already up to 65.1. We need English only, I'm sorry. All the developers, something, speak English. Right? So yeah, sorry. We do need English here in this chat. I can read a little bit of Spanish. Yeah, all the developers have something. Yeah. I don't know what directo there means. The gist of what I think you're saying is all the developers like in this category are speaking English. I mean, if you wait just a little bit, there are some Spanish streamers that I feel like they start a little bit later in the day. Online. That's what the word was. Okay, so all the devs that are online right now speak English. Yeah. See, I mean, I understand enough Spanish that I got it, but we just got to keep it like, so everyone can understand each other. And it's a good chance for you to practice your English. Okay, so the thing I want to do real quick is do a search or maybe even look at some of the releases that they've made and look at their like notes and see if they fixed this bug that I have, because I don't really want to push up a new version of this if I don't have to. But we can do it. We could just YOLO it. We should probably keep it up to date anyway, right? I don't know. Let me go pour some more water, and I'll be right back. Okay, and I'm back. Got my water. Oh, and I am sore from snowboarding today. You're a beginner and you want to create a game with C++, what you should learn first? I don't know. Probably C++ then, huh? We tend to recommend, Lucas, that people learn like web dev stuff first because you don't have to set up any crazy software or build pipelines or CLI bullshit or any of that, right? Compilers and all that junk. I think the most important thing for a beginner is to see results as quickly as possible. And you're not going to beat that. You're not going to beat the web in that regard. Yeah, YouTube doesn't get the music just because they're like, their music detection stuff is really annoying. I'm eating some potato chips. They are jalapeno. They're really crunchy. Yeah, even then, four wheel, you're not going to see results that quickly, and it's not going to make a lot of sense. It's not about being a web dev, right? That part doesn't matter. It's about messing with code and getting hooked on like the dev loop of changing something, seeing the result, changing something, seeing the result, without having to go through the bullshit of setting up a dev environment. Even setting up Unity is more of a hassle than I would recommend for beginners. Is that the Timothy Chalamet movie? No, I haven't seen it. There's very few biopics like that I would actually find interesting. I don't know. It's always the same story, kind of. If you've seen Ray, or if you've seen the Johnny Cash movie, or any of those, you basically know the same story. So then the film is just fan service. If you like Bob Dylan, well, that would be a great reason to go see it. But just any generic musician biopic, they're a dime a dozen. Only one that stands out that's different is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Wrong kid died. Get out of here, Dewey. You don't want none of this. This is marijuana. It turns all your bad feelings into good feelings. Well, is it addictive? It's not addictive at all. Well, I don't want to overdose. You can't. It's physically impossible. Hmm. Hmm. So yeah, we're seeing 5 years ago. 2 years ago, 2 years ago. Hmm. Let me get more music on. Let me put it this way. I will happily watch that the Bob Dylan movie if it makes it onto like Tubi TV or something where we can watch it while it's like co-working time. I'll watch it then. I watch all sorts of Drek. Like I watched the latest Shazam movie just yesterday. It was actually all right, despite the lead guy being a dickbag. The film was okay. All right, you know what? I say we just yellow up an update. How bad could it be? Before I do that, we're gonna do this. All right, so that's updated. We can switch back over here.
Now, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?
And request response there. Ah, shit. You know what? I messed up. Because, yeah, we use it in the CLI to do some of this stuff. So, yeah, the CLI needs to bump version as well. What's up, Polymathic? How you doing? Do this one more time. And yeah, I should really get change sets going again. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't actually be that much work. The fact that I've published a bunch of versions without change sets shouldn't actually be a big problem. All right, so we bring that in. Now we need to update CLI as well. And then from here, we stop that. And yeah, what's everyone up to out there? You all having a good day? I went snowboarding today. It wasn't an epic powder day like I was hoping, but got up there, rode for a couple hours. My legs and back are sore. My arms are a bit sore. I'm not feeling it in the abs because I wasn't like spinning or doing like grabs or anything. I did like some like 180s and little poppers and stuff. But man, yeah, I need to do some core exercise because it is a like major effort. if I leave the ground, bringing my legs up to grab my board is so much more effort than it used to be. Ugh, there's this giant gut in the way. But even then, like a strong core, even with a gut, would be fine. So I just need to strengthen my core. But my snowboard pants don't fit as well as they used to. So I should lose some weight. I think Munch is a potato chip. All right, let's do that. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Because we still need to rescaffold things. That's what I wanted. So this will let us know pretty quick. Because there's a get 200 that only fails because an optional property was missing on the response. Yeah. That is a little annoying. But our types will be okay with it. Right, like our SDKs we generate will be fine. But to get the tests to pass, those values need to be there. So yeah, we'll scaffold them out that way. I would have liked to be able to just, have optional properties not be in the response and it doesn't yell at us. It seems like you can only do that for requests, not responses. So yeah, where we go and generate a bunch of accounts. That's this. And we'll just do account detail. We'll do this. Math dot random. There we go. Free or premium. Why not? Bam. Nailed it. Okay, so we go back to our hooks. And yes, we've got one failure. That's going to be like heavy debugging, so we do that by just integrating it into the dashboard. This one will work when we rescaffold, or like re-fixture, I guess. Or regenerate fixtures. That's probably the right way to say it. And then here, getting a specific account ID. Yeah, we don't have the account ID that we're fetching there. So there's the 500. There's the 200 that's just missing a prop. And the next failure is this. So we expected that 200. We got a 200. Yep. So what's happening there is in the before each, we are looking for a value, such as account ID here. And that account ID where's that value even coming from? Right. So it's where we load that data in, which means we do need to create. Actually, no, you know what? That one's going to work. We don't need to do anything for this one. I was thinking we could like create one and then we would know that it has the props, but really it's just a flaw in how we're doing our fixture data. So we'll skip that one too. So then the next one is a patch, and the patch fails on us with a 500 sad panda. So that one being a 500 is interesting. Yeah, and in debug mode, we're not necessarily printing the endpoint, so it's going to be harder for us to find where that 500 is. Because we're always going to get that error getting business by user. And balance and get balance. Like a bunch of those logs are noise. So let's fix that. That's easy enough. So that one I think we can leave. Yep. All right, so we get rid of that one and the balance in get balance. And let's just go double check some of these. Are we seeing, we shouldn't be seeing, All right, that's magic link. That's the one. So we don't need that. That was just to debug some stuff that we never fixed. That one I'm okay with. That one I'm okay with. Those I don't think we need anymore. All right, so now we've been through the whole list. Okay, so we clear that and we run this again, and we should be able to debug some of the issues there just a little bit better. Okay, so we get to the top, we get the 401 that we expect. Primary key, data store. Checking our queries there. The missed key schema element. So the missed key schema element is this one. And yeah, 400 was that Zod error. We get through a bunch of stuff there. We get, and let's just double check. So after that, we see another 400 that we're expecting, another 400 after that. Unhandled error. One or more parameter values are not valid. The update expression attempted to update a secondary index key to a value that is not supported. Oh, really? I think that is our patch right there. Hmm. Are you saying this output right here? I'm going to assume yes, that is Dread.js. Cool. So yeah, Dread.js is taking my OpenAPI YAML file, and it is actually making requests to my API using the source of truth from the OpenAPI YAML file. So it's almost like automatic integration tests, but there's still like work you have to do to set up the requests. So for some of these, right, for maybe like a delete endpoint, we probably need to like create the item that we want to delete, right? That way we're not deleting something else that breaks all of our other tests. So there's like hooks, like a before hook in which you might want to set some of that stuff up. Or in the after hook, after you create something, you might want to save it for later and then use it in some of the subsequent tests. But this is making sure that our OpenAPI specification is telling the truth. I consider that very important. I almost want to give like more talks about Dread, but the title would have to be like deprecated schmeprecated, because it is a deprecated library that still actually works. Requests on production? I mean, that's just logging. Like, that's just logging. One of the larger like logging libraries I've seen is Winston. There's another. So yeah, Winston.js is one. What's the other? Pinot or something like that? Yep. Pinot is the other. So yeah, Pinot or Winston, if you're looking for a JavaScript logging library, this is probably what you actually want. If you care about this exact like formatting and some of this stuff, well, you probably don't need the pass fail. But then all this stuff, like, yeah, like structured logs, that's actually not that hard to do. So both Pinot and Winston have the idea of transports, I believe. Yep. So transports are basically like where you write the logs to. Debug module? I'm not familiar with debug module. Do you have a link for us? Yeah, very often I will have like a config or command line arguments that dictate which logs should be actually printed. Because in dev, there are logs that you care about, whereas like in production, probably less logs that you care about. But you don't want to necessarily remove them. So at that point, being able to like turn off and on categories of log statements becomes really valuable. But yeah, transports here are basically like where you write the files to. So you can write to an external server, you can write to a file, you can write to whatever. Right. No, that makes sense. I like that. Yeah, so the namespacing seems really good. And being able to like selectively enable or disable those. Yeah, really cool. So yeah, this is more about whether you do the log, and Winston is about like the contents of the log. So yeah, you can use them in conjunction just fine. I would guess maybe you would want to create like a some kind of plugin that ties them together, but you might not need to. Is there some like wiring that you got to do between them? Or is it like really straightforward? Mm-hmm. I think it'd be cool if they had some example of that. But yeah, 311 million weekly downloads. Yeah, this is a popular package. And when we get to the bottom, we see TJ Holloway Chuck. I know, right, Mustafa? That one's crazy. But yeah, TJ Holloway Chuck. He doesn't even do JavaScript anymore, but like his legacy cannot be ignored. Right? He built Express, he built Connect, he built this, he built just so much stuff. It's impossible to name it all. He built Koa. I'm sure there's more. And it has one dependency. MS, that's probably like a millisecond formatting package. Yep. Probably also written by TJ. It's owned by Vercel now. Okay. Do you think TJ probably wrote it originally anyway? He's in there, and he's earlier than anyone. Oh, it looks like actually Guillermo Rausch did a lot of contribution to it. TJ did the most, but you know, it's not a lot of commits, so it's not a big deal. Now that's cool, right? And it shows you like, yeah, how much like Guillermo's actually been contributing to the community since before shilling Next.js so much, right? Like he's one of the few like tech CEOs that has just he's been there, right? For the longest time. He helped build Socket.io, you know? So yeah, Guillermo's got chops. I may not agree with all the ways he's trying to push SSR, but Guillermo's got chops. I think that's cool. It's kind of rare for like a tech CEO to do that. Guillermo did Mongoose? Wait, really? I didn't know that one. He did. Wow, like ages ago. Damn. Yeah, he's like the OG. This is his brainchild. I know, that's a shame. So from January to June 2011, 1,300 commits. Damn, Guillermo. Good job, Gizmo. Shit. Dude, do you think he likes or dislikes what we do in the Shadows, the TV show? Because they have Guillermo as a character in that, not him, but like the name, and they call him Gizmo. It's so fun. Do you think I'd get punched if I called him Gizmo? There's only one way to find out. I could tweet it. You'd have a hard time punching me over the internet. No, it's not whiskey. It's just tea. I did have a little bit when I was snowboarding. I'm at that age where like I need like a couple pulls off the flask just to like limber up a bit. I don't know if you've ever like heard the studies like in drunk driving accidents. The drunk driver is typically fine like compared to the people they run into because the drunk driver is like so relaxed because there's something about like tensing up super hard actually causes more damage sometimes. That is definitely the case with snowboarding a bit. Not completely. You still need to know how to fall. And you don't want to get shit faced. But yeah, a little bit of whiskey can keep you from like over tightening a muscle, things like that. But yeah, I did not realize Guillermo Rauch did Mongoose. That is kind of cool. Yeah, he's got chops, man. Like, yeah, it's kind of cool. All right. Album's still going. We're good. Okay, so the next bit. The error that we're getting there. One of his first open source projects. I mean, he helped build Socket.io before that, right? But I guess not all of Socket.io was open source. Damn. He still leads this, and actually, yeah, it was around the same time. I'd say he was just like a year earlier. Yeah, so it's about the same time as Socket.io. Yeah, so Mongoose and Socket.io at about the same time. That's kind of crazy. I wonder if he built Mongoose because Socket.io was using Mongo. And they allowed him to open source it. Yeah, I wasn't aware of like the timing of all that. Yeah, crazy. All right, so yeah, this is the which endpoint was that? This is the patch endpoint. So yeah, businesses, business ID, accounts, account ID. Yeah, it's the patch. Because, yeah, we haven't moved on to the businesses yet. Okay. So it's going to be in here, and it's probably something to do with this bit. All right, we'll fire that off. We got to be careful because we don't get a search on the output of this. So we just got to make sure we don't over scroll it. Otherwise, it's a pain in the ass. Hmm. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to selectively because we're using account ID. Hold on. Wait. We're doing account name. Wait, so yeah, I think we have an index on account name. Yeah, so okay. Shit. Hmm. So really, account name is not is not actually optional. Hmm. That does make things a little trickier. I mean, not trickier, but it's not a big deal to enforce that our users send an account name. This is just so we can actually sort these things. Hmm. Yeah, account name is just not optional. Right? Like we'll be able to search optional values, but if we need to sort by it, there has to be a value there. Hmm. Now we could do a heck and have just like some string equal to an empty value, and then we just, if it's that empty value, we just show it as empty in the UI. That might be the move. We could still allow users to submit an empty value. And then if they submit the empty value, we coerce that to our like under the hood empty value. I guess the next thing is we want it to sort properly, and that sorting would probably just, we'd want to do like an underscore maybe. How do we feel about that? Right? If Dynamo won't let me set account name to empty string because we're using it for this indexing, right? This is the sort key for this global secondary index. What we can do then, or wait, no, we can just, I think we can just set it to undefined or null. Your chunky ramen was pretty good. Nice. I'm curious if this works. So now I just want to test it. All right, we'll do the existing account thing there. And yeah, I think I kind of like that. What I want to know is that going to work now? And what's up, Snowly? How do I keep my music off of the YouTube stream? So yeah, OBS has the ability to send certain audio to certain channels. And let me double check. Yeah, so then the plugin I'm using, which is called multi RTMP for OBS, that allows you to select, the other output, right? So YouTube, I get to select the audio mixer channel that they get. So it's the same way that you set up like Twitch VODs to not have music as well. So yeah, my Twitch VODs don't have the music either. So yeah, it's fiddling with like the audio mixer settings. And there should be some YouTube videos that you can find that kind of like show you the process. I mean, yeah, that's what I'm using. I think the Ivan one, and an ad's about to start. So 1 sec. No, it's not Ivan. Shit. Anyone remember the name of that multi-stream software plugin for OBS? Item, not Ivan. All right, so this is the one I use. Yep. Okay, so the ad should be over. So yeah, Snowly, multi-RTMP is the one I'm using currently. I think that's the one that Acorn uses as well. But the item one that I linked is also an option. And that one's more up to date, so might be worth checking that one out too. Did you get all that? I hope the ad was over. Stream Elements has one too. Oh, you didn't even get the ad? Okay, perfect. Just making sure. Stream Elements might have one too. Yeah. And Stream Elements is a good company, so check them out as well. So yeah, 2 steps. Number 1, figure out how to split your audio so that it doesn't show up in your VODs. That's just a Twitch only thing. Once you've got that set up, then it's just setting the audio mixer channel for YouTube with whatever multi-RTMP plugin you use. But that's the way I would get it working first. Make sure your music's not going to your VODs on Twitch. And then, then you can make it work for the multi-stream stuff. And I'm sure there's some good YouTube video to explain it. I know I watched one. I forget which one. Okay, so did this blend? The patch still failed. Yeah, no worries, Snelly. Yeah, anytime. Damn, okay. Cannot contain an empty string value. We do see account name is an empty string value, but let's try it with null. Because I do kind of want people to be able to, like, null that stuff out. But we still get the same error. What's up, Swagdev? How you doing? Just fixed a bug in prod. Nice. All right, so yeah, we would have run into this issue if I had account name as empty in our fixture data. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do first then is just make sure that account name is required. Fuck it, no big deal. Right, for the MVP, I think that's okay. So then, yeah, account name required. Search field and account detail are fine. We're not going to be sorting on any of those values. Searching the search field, you know, we should still be able to search account detail. So that would be fine. So now we just need to update the request response stuff. think I'm okay with that. Yeah, so if we set an explicit undefined value, that seems okay. All right, so at that point, we can just go back to this. All right, we get the API back up and running. It's still going to fail, right? Because now we're passing an empty value, and it's going to give us a 400 instead of the 500, though, at least. It's a way of scaffolding AWS Lambda stuff. At this point, I would probably opt for SST if I didn't have a whole bunch of other stuff built around Architect. Or I'd at least try it. But I have like my own meta framework for backend stuff on top of Architect. We called it Calatrava because he's like a famous architect. Somewhat controversial, but still famous. But yeah, Calatrava is where like some of my middleware comes from, like this get tables stuff, where this like at route decorator comes from. Yeah, so is valid request, so doing like validation. Some utility functions. Yeah. So I don't know. There's like a lot of stuff I've built around Architect where it's just not worth refactoring to some other thing yet. Like honestly, something built around Cloudflare workers and Hono would be kind of nice. So yeah, there's like this framework Honk. I would probably end up building some like meta stuff around Honk at some point if I wanted to like really pursue Cloudflare. And I plan on actually launching a project or two using Honk here pretty soon. But yeah, it's just Hono, Drizzle, Neon, and Cloudflare. I would probably skip the Neon part. We'll see. There's definitely something to be said about Neon instead of like D1, just because D1 has like a 10 gigabyte limit or something like that. For some of these projects I plan on like building, I don't know if that's a problem. And at the moment that it is a problem, I can probably just migrate to something like Neon anyway. So yeah, I would say for just, for MVP purposes, D1 is probably fine, and it's probably a better experience for the users anyway. But yeah, that 10 gigabyte limit for D1, kind of a problem. It's kind of the cost you pay for being able to be a global database rather than like a region database. But it means that you got to like partition your data anyway in some way. We'll start thinking about that when we do our next projects. Because, yeah, Waltr, I want to get to a launched MVP, like ASAP. And then that launched MVP, I want to use and dog food into other products to see if it even works the way I like it, right? I need to become my own user because I feel like it's going to be a hard sell to other people until I've like, you know, put my money where my mouth is kind of stuff. Because I'm bootstrapping, I think that's like a big part of that. One second. And yeah, okay. So just learned about HashiCorp. That seemed like a hard sell, but it paid off, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I don't think HashiCorp was that hard of a sell. Like, there's a lot of stuff that they do really well, right? But yeah, you need like what was it? Terraform? Was that theirs? So Terraform, Vault, like a bunch of those things. There's big money in wrapping something as complicated as AWS. Big money. That's basically what Vercel is, right? Vercel is just an AWS wrapper. There's big money in AWS wrappers. Not as hard of a sell as you think. I think the big thing is that an AWS wrapper is not necessarily that sticky because it's all the same like building blocks. As long as you switch to another tool that allows you to deploy the same building blocks, you're good to go. It's not a big deal. Whereas what I'm building is like a fundamental part of your product, like auth, you know? Switching auth is a huge pain in the ass. That's a really sticky product. Like you could switch from Terraform to Pulumi. It wouldn't necessarily be easy, but it's doable. Switching from Clerk to Auth0, dude, that's going to be such a fucking nightmare. You can do it, but the effort probably doesn't justify what you're paying to Clerk, you know? Replacing like an email provider, right? Like replacing SendGrid with Postmark. That's not sticky whatsoever. That's really easy, actually. So yeah, a lot of those like email providers, I don't actually think they're great businesses. Everyone needs one, but switching from one to the other isn't a big deal. Whereas, like, yeah, if I build out Waltr right, people are basically building around Waltr for what they're building, you know? For that to be like an easy sell, it needs to work really well and solve their problem with as little effort as possible. That's my theory, at least. I don't know. And yeah, Terraform. I think Terraform's a HashiCorp thing. I could be wrong. That's not their only product. I think Vault is actually their best product. Right? Key management is tough. That's a very expensive problem to solve if you want to do it ad hoc, or you can just use Vault. So I think, yeah, Terraform might have been how like HashiCorp got started. If I'm remembering right that Terraform was their thing. But I think their other products are actually what made them successful into like an actual business. All right, so our patch is still failing, and the reason it's failing should be a 400 now, which should not be a big deal. Wait, that's still a 500? No way. So Scaffold should have fixed that. That was the last song on the album, though. Let me get another. All right, so account name is required. Right, but we didn't set a minimum length. All right, so now we should get a 400 from that. And then the fix is that we're sending the value in a before hook. All right, so there's the failure. Yep, so we got the 400. All right, so now we can go back to our hooks and fix it. Think it's update account, but we got to look. Yep, update account is the name of it. Looking for a 200. We do the foo bar and we call that good. So then, yeah, that'll fix that. We can just move on to the next one. All right, so this one is a get. It's a 404. Yeah. So for this one, all right, so getting a business. Oh, and we want this one to be the 404. We want to replace main business ID with not found. All right, so that should fix that one. All right, so the patch endpoint here is giving us a 403. Right, and we don't want to actually do admin API keys. So this is always going to be a 403 because the API key lacks the permission. Right? This API key only has write access, but you need admin access to modify a business. So instead, oh, we don't even have a delete endpoint for those. That was the video that you recommended, right? Nice. And which plugin were they using in that video? Was that the Stream Elements one? Nice. Yeah, I'm going to say creating a business is. Oh, what is the difference between open and public? Shit. This logic seems off. Why can is public and not open, but yeah, why are we allowing that? That logic seems really bad. So open is you don't need auth. Auth, yeah. So open is 0 auth. Okay. I don't want to change this yet, but this is why the bearer auth. Yeah, we wanted bearer auth and API key auth to be in both. I think that's actually just wrong because they're just separate documents. Okay, let me go use the restroom real quick. But I think that's it. Yeah. Almost need to document that somewhere myself. But yeah, let me go pee. I'll be right back. Boy, sorry, had to pee. We're chugging this tea. And I missed some follows. Hold on. Chinny and Mitty Murph and Carlo Lombardi. Vince Lombardi's lesser known cousin. How you doing? Thank y'all for the follows. Appreciate you. Have another handful of chips. Oh man. There's a Seattle JS event tonight, which means no gaming stream tonight. But I'm probably not going to leave here in time to get some food before I get there, so. Chip time. Hmm. This is kind of cool. So, Seattle JS is hosting the TC39 committee, and it'll be at DocuSign tonight. But if you register, there's going to be a Zoom link, right? So you can actually attend virtually too. So yeah, I'd highly recommend, like, if you got time, and I won't be streaming, so I don't know what the hell you'll be doing. If you want to check it out, and watch the presentations, right? If we look at them, some of them seem pretty interesting. So an intro to TC39 by Rob Palmer, a recap of this week's TC39 meeting and like what they talked about. They're going to talk about temporal, import defer, which sounds interesting. Faster TypeScript compilation with TS blank space, free the JavaScript trademark, and hardened JavaScript. This sounds cool. So yeah. Let me copy and paste it for YouTube too. Food and drink. Do we think there will be beer? Should I bring my flask? All right, back to the bug we're working on. Hold on, we skip. And hold on. Let me go look at the route decorator real quick. Right, they're optional, which means they default to false. So we can just remove it. All right, so yeah, the business patching stuff should be good now. So what we want to do is verify that. We do a rescaffold. We bring the database back up. And we rerun it. Do we think it'll succeed? We've only got 3 tests failing now? Oh. And 2 of those are just we need to rescaffold our fixture data. Okay. Let's get that going. All right, so that should get us to 29 of 30. Now, the big problem is that that's not actually all of them. We kind of need to then like audit every single endpoint's openness and publicness as we go through the list. And then that'll actually fill out our OpenAPI YAML a bit better. But we want to let this finish. The public API is the only one I care about myself. The moment we get other people involved, the private API becomes important. And I don't think there's any single thing on the public API that is technically open, right? Like everything on the public API needs a token or a key, I should say. So those things are mutually exclusive. Which brings us back to this bit, or no, not that bit. This bit. I feel like this should actually be outside of that. Uh, oh, actually, yeah, we were going to push to it. We don't need to push to it. That part's actually fine. Yeah, only place we're using API key auth. Oh, so we do that in a couple different places. Yep. Oh, maybe. Yeah. There you go. Good catch. I think we're gonna want HTTP security scheme here, and it'll use an auth header. What was that notification? Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, I think that's a good update for that bit. Oh, and it's funny. Hold on, Sergeant Pepper. I have a debug function. It's just my own ad hoc one. That's funny. All right, so that one we expected to fail. These other two should work now. They're coming up here in a second. Ooh, that one still fails. Interesting. So the second one that fails, why? Oh, last evaluated key. Hmm. How are we using last evaluated key? We aren't. So last evaluated key, we need to actually like hard code to an empty object maybe, and then we'd be good. Because we do get it back when we are paginating, I'm pretty sure. Hmm. So yeah, we can just create an empty object for that value and probably call it good. Let me get more music going. All right, so we'll update that. We need to update request response and the CLI. And yeah, what are you up to, Volko? All right, so then here, ClickHouse is doing your head in. Why is that? Because it's like a columnar database instead of like a row-based database? Because that stuff's confusing to me too, man. I don't understand. Oh, okay, so now we need to do this again. Need to do the two-factor auth. And yeah, I only got to hide this because they show my IP address. I might even create like a bullshit browser extension just to hide that. There you go. All right, 3 new packages published. So now over in the API, we need to update our dependency versions. Bring that in. We shouldn't need to rescaffold anything. And what time is it? 5 o'clock? I still got time. Talks don't start until 6:30. I don't need to be there for like the earliest bit. Ooh, we get way more failures now, though. What the hell? What's up, Standard? You about to head out to Seattle JS? Nice. Yeah, I'll be heading there soon. We pretty much just broke everything. How? Hold on. So we've got the one balance. You've been meaning to go to it? I mean, the one today is really interesting. If you do plan on going, you do need to register. You could also just watch it remotely. But here's the Luma link. Yeah, this is like a very special one. So it's going to be at DocuSign, and it's like all about like TC39, right? So the standards committee that adds things to JavaScript and gets things approved and all that junk. Could be really interesting. There is a remote link if you register, so that could be worth it. Oh no, I get it, Volko, but I mean, just saying, there's a remote link. You can just listen in via virtual, like Zoom. I won't be streaming while it's going, so what else are you gonna do? Yeah, like this is rare. They don't always do it. Like they rarely do it for Seattle JS. But tonight, if you can't make it, you can at least watch the video. No, that's fine. You could just say you weren't listening. I'm just having fun. Hmm. Yeah, it happens. That would have been a happy little accident. Okay, we're getting a bunch of 404s that we shouldn't. Hmm. So that fixed one endpoint. Huh. What's up, X Factor? How you doing? Yeah, this might be a good point to leave off at, actually. Yeah, so we got those two tasks. Well, yeah, no, I gotta go to Seattle JS. I was thinking maybe I'd put another hour in. If I hadn't, like, backtracked a bunch. And we get a chance to go raid Prime. That'd be cool. I don't get a chance to raid Prime. He doesn't go this late very much. So, might be a good chance to go raid Prime. But yeah, I went snowboarding earlier today. And there is a Seattle JS tonight. It's rare that those happen on a Thursday. This is like a very special event. And there is a remote link if you want to go watch the TC39 stuff. But yeah, that's the event I'll be in person at. But you can always just, watch it on Zoom. And it does say be sure to bring your ID. Does that mean there will be beer? Be a whole lot cooler if there was. But yeah, let's go raid Prime. I haven't had a chance to raid Prime in ages. Oh, he's AFK. Oh, that's right. It's the Devon thing. That's why his numbers dropped off. Eh. If he was actually there, I think it'd be worth it. We're going to go raid non-codes. I haven't had a chance to raid non-codes in a while. Even if she's going to wrap up soon. Whatever. I think it is cool what he's doing with the, Devon writes code thing. It's just, it's not really something to raid into, right? I think it's smart of him. Collect that ad money. I get that. Hell yeah, man. But yeah. Yeah, I should make it into Seattle. Still need to, like, get ready to go and everything, so it'll take me a while to get there. And yeah, tomorrow, our big task is that stuff that we did over here. First thing we'll do, because it's easy, is just go through every endpoint, make sure that the open/public flags are set correctly so that these things get routed to the right OpenAPI document. And then also make sure that they get the right auth set for them, which sounds fine. And then, yeah, after that, we just got to fix more of these endpoints, especially the ones that shouldn't have broken. So yeah, YouTube, thank you for hanging out. And I'll be here tomorrow. I might be able to start earlier tomorrow. I think I could. I think I can. So yeah, later YouTube. I'm going to try and start maybe around noon tomorrow.